Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this regular meeting of council to order on December 7th, 2021. We've already gone into closed session, and so now we will have rise and report from that. Look to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would advise that following consideration of the personal matters regarding identifiable individuals, council's deliberations concluded with the provision of confidential direction to staff regarding the matter.
Thank you. And we'll now stand for the national anthem, please. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, I have one. I have a pecuniary interest on agenda item 12-2021 and bylaw number 43, 2021, respecting the abandoned rail corridor, as I live adjacent to the one listed in the group for sale. I will relinquish the chair to Deputy Mayor Cridlin during council deliberations on these items. Now, Mayor's remarks. Please note the meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. I'd like to thank Ava May McKeans for submitting the winning entry to our Township Christmas card contest this year. Her artwork appears on our Township card that is sent out to the region and beyond. We'd like to recognize Len McEwen for putting up this beautiful Christmas tree last week in our council chambers. Thank you, Len. We've had already many compliments on the beauty of that tree. Council held a special meeting on Friday, December 3rd, 2021 at 9 a.m. to receive a council training workshop from Amberly Gavel. Niagara Region Council will hold its next regular meeting December 16th at 6:30 p.m. and Wainfleet Council will meet January 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The office will be closed during the Christmas holidays from December 23rd at noon and reopening on January the 4th at 8:30 a.m. On behalf of council, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. Are there any councillor remarks? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just that the NPCA next full authority meeting is this Friday. Oh, no, it's not this Friday. Friday, December 17th at 9:30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adoption of our previous minutes. The minutes of the regular meeting of council held November 16th, 2021 be adopted as amended, and the minutes of the special meeting of council held December 3rd, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Mover seconder for those. Moved by Councillor Gilmore, seconded by Councillor Cridlin. And any comments or discussion? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just noted one change to the minutes of November 16th. I've reviewed it with the clerk, and it's on Resolution C 2021-256, respecting the grant donations. The motion should now include the wording to update the grant and donation policy to eliminate the soliciting of grant and donation applications for Stream 2 funding as discussed at the meeting. So if that could just be added to the minutes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the clerk is acknowledging that she has that, so that will be repaired. Any other comments or discussion on those two sets of minutes? I see none. All in favor of accepting those? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. We now move on to our delegations, and our first delegate, agenda has been reordered, just so people know, to consider 2021 respecting Vision Zero program directly after the first delegation presentation. So we'll have the presentation and then we will work right into the report. So we look to Carolyn Ryell, Director, Transportation Services Division, and Beth Brenz, Acting Associate Director, Financial Reporting and Analysis regarding the Vision Zero Road Safety Program. And I see they're on our screen, and you have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning. Good. It's been a long day, Mayor Gibson. Good evening, Mayor Gibson and Wainfleet Town Council. Thank you so much for having the region, transportation here in particular. Thank you for the introduction. I just wanted to also acknowledge that Judy McPherson, a Transportation Services Coordinator, who's been involved in the program, is in the room as well, assisting us this evening. So just a couple things. I wanted to confirm we did make a request for the delegation to be longer than 10 minutes due to the content of the presentation. So I just wanted to confirm that that's been approved and we're allowed that additional time before we start.
Yes, that's acceptable.
Thank you. And then the last request is that we wanted to share our screen so that we could flip through the presentation as we're moving through it, if Madam Clerk can help us or assist with that.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. And before we begin, I just wanted to confirm you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can. Looks good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, Judy, if you can flip to the next slide for me. So again, thank you for having the region here. We're excited to be before you. We're here to talk about the Vision Zero Road Safety Program. So to start off in the presentation, I'll walk the council through the different aspects of the program and the intent of what we would like to be rolling out under the Vision Zero Road Safety Program. And then we're also seeking an approval this evening from Town Council related to the intermunicipal agreement. Amendments have been made to that agreement, which we'll walk through this evening as well. There is a financial overview, a component that deals with the 2020 business case that was approved here at Regional Council with regards to the Vision Zero program that I'll pass over to Beth partway through the presentation to provide some context around. And then lastly, we'll talk about next steps for the launch, again, once the 12 municipal approvals have been received by the region. So first, I wanted to just outline a number of the initiatives underway, and as we transition into the launch of the program, what that looks like. So community safety zones so speeding, we all know, is a leading factor that we're all dealing with when we're dealing with road safety matters. And approximately 1/3 of fatal crashes have to do with the speed at which different drivers are maneuvering themselves on the roadway. Niagara Region Council has the authority under the Municipal Act to pass bylaws and initiate measures to ensure the health and safety of residents. So the implementation of the community safety zones is one application that is underway already by the region as we look to improve the safety for all users on the roadway. So to date, the region has implemented 13 locations across the regional road network. There are 38 schools on the regional roads that the region has done a very large assessment across each of them. We look at traffic volume, we look at speed differential, we've looked at the number of students walking to and from school. We look at land use around the school, such as the built form. We're looking at illumination, crosswalks, collision history, just to name a few, when we were assessing the 38 schools. So that's how the 13 original community safety zones came into play and have been approved by regional council, and they're already implemented. So when we talk about a community safety zone, we're talking about sensitive areas such as schools, parks, retirement homes, anything to do with high levels of active transportation. And again, the strategic priority for the region was dealing with school zones and putting them where there's, again, with the intent to have multimodal use and getting students to and from schools. Next slide, please. So how does that translate into the automated speed enforcement program? So the ASC was launched in December of 2019 by the province. I'm pleased to say that Niagara Region was a stakeholder at the table since 2017. There was a large number of stakeholders across Ontario that that consisted of those stakeholders. So we were initially and had the privilege of being involved in the legislation that was put before the minister, and that was approved in December of 2019. So what this allows for is that anything that is designated as a community safety zone is able to have automated speed enforcement, ASC technology, put in those areas. So when we're dealing with increasing safety, reducing speed, trying to change driver behavior in a possible way, working and continuing to work with the Niagara Regional Police who've been assisting in the community safety zones, this is an electronic means that will be able to support the driving factor, again, of increasing safety and making driver awareness on speeds of the road more visible so people understand how they're maneuvering. One key thing around ASC that was approved by the province in 2019 is that any revenue that may come out of the ASC program needs to be put towards supporting public safety and educational initiatives related to that. So the next slide talks to ASC currently underway. So the number of stakeholders here that you can see the municipalities outlined, these were stakeholders that were that formed part of the initial group as again the legislation and the regulation was being formed. You can see that there are 123 cameras currently in operation, and the Joint Processing Center has already sent out or released 522,000 tickets for those who've been traveling at higher speeds through school zones and community safety zones. I'd like to draw your attention to, for example, from Peel down to London, that a number of those municipalities started out with small pilot launching programs dealing with 1 or 2 cameras. And I'm pleased to say the region's program, again, with the unanimous support across all 12 municipalities, we would like to start our program similar to Durham with 4 cameras. You can see that in progress, there are a number of municipalities, Hamilton being the closest to Niagara Region. They started out with 2 cameras, and after their pilot program, they're now increasing their program, which also would be the intent of Niagara Region, would be to increase it, and you can see they're increasing theirs by 8. Lastly, if I could just note, the charge volume is 522,000 tickets that have been released thus far, again, to those drivers. One would think if you divide that by 123 cameras, you'd be seeing around 4,200 tickets per camera. It's fair to say that the time of operation, the days of operation are not known. So again, I would draw everyone's attention to the region has an estimate of what we think our charge volumes will be, which Beth will speak to. And you can see on the lower end here that a number of those municipalities, again, without knowing how they're operating, are around the 5,000 ticket mark. So when we talk about red light cameras, this again is another electronic means, another technology that the region would like to have to implement throughout all of Niagara Region. This is something that's been well underway, and it was approved by the province in 2000. In approximately 24% of fatal collisions at a municipal intersection with the traffic signals are due to red light running. And with the objective of transportation coming out of the region, we're looking to obviously incorporate a lot more active transportation through bike lanes, multi-use paths, and other activities in how we design our roadways. We've got our complete streets design manual currently underway that talks to incorporating a multimodal approach for all road users. So again, the cameras since 2000, with the analysis that has been done, has proven to reduce right-angle collisions by 25%. So it's a proven effective technology to assist with safety at the intersections. And when we talk about safety and the seriousness of those accidents, which can be serious in nature all the way to fatalities, this isn't just vehicle. This is vehicle with pedestrian and vehicle with cyclists. So the strategicness of implementing this program from our perspective is key again to how we want to manage the safety on our roadways. The program that the region would like to start initially with our launch includes 10 red light cameras across Niagara region. Analysis by an external consultant is underway where they're looking at all intersections throughout the region. That's regional and municipal, regional and MTO, and regional and Niagara Parks Commission. And the intent will be that a report, again, once the approvals are all in place through this program, a report will be coming back subsequently to the region that'll be outlining the methodology, the criteria, and then the 10 red light locations that we are recommending that we start the implementation, again, with the intent to increase the program after we've had a chance to analyze the results and again, work with our stakeholders and our 12 local area municipalities on the progression and expansion of the program. So when we talk about Vision Zero, there are a number of items that I spoke to during the presentation when I spoke to the 1 to the 5 year capital outlook. A number of these initiatives are just standard safety practices, best practices that the region is already currently doing. However, they do fall under the Vision Zero initiative from our lens. As we extend the program, obviously we're strategically going to want to expand the use of the automated enforcement tools that we have, in addition, again, to working with the Niagara Regional Police and with their partnership. We're going to continue to do all of the other strategic safety initiatives, whether it's traffic calming, looking at mid-block crossings and different types of crossings that can be used, again, to allow for a multimodal safe road network. We look at geometrics and roadways. We had a conversation not that long ago with your manager of operations, Richard, on how we can highlight and deal with areas of concern that may have curves with specific markings. So this is just a typical way of how we deal with those safety initiatives, but it's fair to say, again, under the Vision Zero initiative, these will be increased in addition to what we, not only to the automated technology enforcement platform. And then lastly, the public outreach and education platforms is key to the success of any safety program. And in particular with the Vision Zero initiative, there'll be a huge education campaign that'll get rolled out to assist the region and the local area municipalities on what this means to, again, driver awareness of what we're doing. So the first part of the presentation was really just to highlight again what tools that we're using and the tools we'd like to adopt under the Vision Zero program. The next part of the presentation here is dealing with the revisions to the Niagara Region Court's intermunicipal agreement, the IMA. We worked very closely with your staff on the report that will be on the floor after the presentation, which is seeking an approval. Maybe Judy, go to the next slide. It's seeking an approval in order for the region to operate, implement, and provide oversight on behalf of the region and the 12 local area municipalities with regards to the launch of this program. I'd like to note that if we do not get the 12 approvals across each of the municipalities, the program will not be able to begin or start, because we do require the unanimous support across all 12 local area municipalities. So what are the changes to the IMA that I need to make you aware of? The current IMA does not recognize the Vision Zero Road Safety Initiative. So that is now specifically outlined and before you as part of what we're recommending. It's allowing the region to lead the implementation, provide the operation and oversight, and also ensure the legislative compliance under the regulation outlined by the province. It allows for funds, net of court costs, so related to us, again, initiating, whether it's operating or capital, it's looking for the region to be able to cover those upfront annual investments prior to any 50-50 split that will be happening between the region and the local area municipalities. So the 50-50 split is similar to the current dynamic that's already in the IMA. The change that we're requesting for Vision Zero specifically is that the upfront costs be returned or reimbursed back to the region, because it is quite substantial to get the program up and running. And then lastly, there is a contemplation in the agreement around we're needing time, obviously, to launch the program, assess the statistics, see how it's operating, not only out on the roads, but in collaboration with the courts, and then to come back at around a 2-year mark to understand how we'd like to expand that program with our partners, and if there's any additional changes to the intermunicipal agreement that are required. The region is willing to do that around the 3-year mark, again, after that assessment. So again, why are we here today? The current agreement does not identify Vision Zero, and we're seeking the approval that it does. The current agreement does not contemplate the province's guidelines for automated enforcement. And again, in order to operate any Vision Zero program related to red light camera and the more recent automated speed enforcement, there's legislative compliance that we need to adhere to, and we will work with each of the 12 municipalities on ensuring we have that information and we're reporting that back in a timely manner, again, to meet the compliance. Another reason why we're here today is the risk of the implementation is being assumed by the region. When we're dealing with the front facing with the public scrutiny, the region will be leading the public outreach, the communication campaigns, and will be answering the questions that come into the region. When we talk about, again, risk of implementation, stakeholder engagement, the region will assist with the coordination and the leading with all the different stakeholders. That includes emergency vehicles, that deals with businesses such as funeral homes that deal with processions through intersections. That's dealing with each of the municipalities and the region on the use of using a municipal and or regional vehicle, and how we all need to follow the Highway Traffic Act and what this does to driver behavior, again, with how we operate our own vehicles. So there's that element of coordination the region will assist with. And then more importantly, again, which is contemplated in the IMA, has to do with the significant upfront costs and recouping those costs as a result of getting this program up and running. The opportunities deal with the fact that the region is a current member of the Automated Speed Enforcement Stakeholders Group. We've been at the table since 2017. We can assist, again, with the consistent delivery of the program, again, across in collaboration or partnership with our 12 local area municipalities, ensuring it's a consistent, wide approach, following consistent criteria on how it's rolled out and where it's adopted. And then we can assist also with the management of resources. That has to do with the ticket volumes going to the courts, and also the costs and all the consultants that we have as part of the program. And again, as we continue to assess and change what that involvement may be from a regional and, again, municipal perspective. So now I'm going to turn it over to Beth to provide a financial overview of the costs and what this means to run the program.
Thanks, Carolyn, and good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight to support the Vision Zero program from a finance perspective. So the goal of the next few slides is to provide a high-level review of the Vision Zero program financials. Like Carolyn noted earlier, it was based on the business case approved by Niagara Region Council and is in alignment with the changes being proposed to the IMA, in addition to an overview of the risks and opportunities. So the slide in front of you right now provides a high-level overview of the estimated operating costs as outlined in the business case. The numbers shown in this slide relate to our first full year of operations, which we're estimating to be 2023. The total operating costs for both the courts program and regions operations in both our transportation and business licensing divisions are estimated at approximately $4 million. Total cost of $4 million will be fully funded if we have ticket revenue of approximately 32,500 tickets, 5,000 for the 10 red light cameras, and 27,500 for the 4 ASE cameras. It is anticipated that the ticket revenue generated from the program will allow for enough funds to cover program operating and implementation costs over the term of the agreement. As outlined in the amendments to the IMA, any program revenue collected over and above the cost in court services in Niagara Region will be split 50-50 in alignment with the current agreement. And as Carolyn noted earlier, any net revenue from the program that is distributed must be reinvested back into public road safety in alignment with the provincial guidelines for the AFB program. So this is another visual of the anticipated Vision Zero revenue expenditures and planned bottom line based on our first full year of operation and based on the 32,500 tickets. It's important to note that courts recognize ticket revenue on a cash basis, meaning revenue is based on ticket revenue received in year, not based on solely on tickets issued. So the 32,500 tickets could result in an estimated total gross revenue of 5.4 million. When considering actual cash received, we are estimating approximately 300,000 of the 5.4 will not be received in the first year, resulting in a net revenue number of the 5.1 million. The 5.1 million is then further reduced to $4 million after victim fines surcharges are considered, and those are mandatory and paid to the province. And then the 4 million comes down to the 2.3 million after the court's program costs are considered, which are approximately 1.7. And then after regional costs, which are estimated at the 2.3 million, you can see we come down to a zero, meaning we're planning for no budgeted distribution of any net revenue associated with the program at this point in time. I've also flagged on the left-hand slide there, left-hand side of the slide, that the region is anticipating approximately $800,000 in implementation costs to get each of the sites ready. It is also anticipated that the region will be paid back for these expenditures from future years' Vision Zero revenue prior to the net revenue distribution. So some of the risks that I would like to flag, there are significant unknowns around the number of tickets that will be issued, challenged, and are not paid, requiring collection efforts. So there are some risks there around some of our revenue assumptions. Because we're not sure, again, of how many tickets will be challenged, we are flagging that there could be pressure on our court system as well if there's a high number of challenges, which could also impact the revenue received. And if we do have less ticket revenue collected than expenditures incurred, I just want to draw attention to Section 7 of the amendment to the IMA, where we're saying regional funding will be used to offset in-year deficits to ensure no negative impact to non-Vision Zero revenue. So the regional funding will be provided as required, with the expectation that it be repaid from future years' net Vision revenue prior to any distribution of future years' Vision Zero revenue. So to reiterate, the LAMs will not be expected to use any of their non-Vision Zero revenue stream to offset Vision Zero program deficits. And as far as opportunities are concerned, the goal of the program is to change driver behavior to reduce overall speeding on roads within the region and ultimately to improve our road safety. And you know, I talked about risks to the revenue. Some of the offsetting factors for that is we do have some flexibility to align staffing levels in the court services, which is a large portion of the planned expenditures, to align based on our ticket volume experience. So this will allow us to ensure we're managing expenditures effectively and ultimately maximizing any net Vision Zero program revenue for distribution. And again, if more ticket revenue is collected than expenditures incurred, that net Vision Zero revenue will be distributed 50-50 to the region and to the LAMs in alignment with current practice. That's for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. So if I can just close on next steps. So we are before you this evening. We went to the town of Lincoln last night and were successful with an approval there. So we're before you this evening requesting the same approval regarding the amendments to the IMA. We have a number of other local area municipal council meetings scheduled for the remainder of December and into the middle of January, with the intent of getting all those approval by the end of January. Once those approvals are in place, we will be going back to regional council to provide an update on the final amending agreement based on the approvals that were sought. We're targeting February of 2022 for that. And then once that approval or update is provided, we will be seeking council approval for the execution of all the vendor agreements that has to do with working with MTO, the Joint Processing Center, and also dealing with the vendors related to the red light camera and the automated speed enforcement. Once that approval is in place, we're targeting February or March timeframe of 2022 We're looking to obviously get the program started as quickly as possible with the vendors in Q2 of 2022. As things progress, the region will be providing an update back to each of the local area municipalities on how things are trending and what our go live start date will be, how we're anticipating that based on how things are unfolding. So I wanted to thank everyone this evening for all of their assistance. A number of staff helped us prepare for this evening. The town clerk, thank you so much for that as well. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolyn and Beth, for your presentation, and I'll look to our councillors if they have any discussion or questions regarding that presentation. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. That was a nice presentation. I have a couple of questions, though. You talk about revenue sharing in that. Is there any consideration into looking at re-engineering some of these poor intersections? I put a lot of miles on in a year. There's some really bad designed intersections. Is there anything where you're going to put some of this money into getting them straightened out? That will help some of our problem. And I know other countries do that. This is not the first place or province that's doing it, but I've read a lot about it, and the re-engineering of some of these treacherous intersections is a big thing.
Through the mayor, thank you for the question. So intersection improvements absolutely fall under safety and any safety initiative that the region may identify and want to put those dollars towards. And the same would exist for the municipality based on, again, when a revenue stream starts and 50% of those dollars are distributed to the local area municipalities. If there are intersection improvements that they would like to make, that can be done with those with that revenue stream, and then we'll work with the local area municipality, obviously, on the reporting of how those dollars are being used for that safety initiative back to the province. But from the region's perspective, safety initiatives do include improvements that can be made at intersections where there are safety problems that we are identifying.
Okay, thank you. Carry on, Councillor McClellan.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, another question is, I can see up front the region getting 50% of the money. They're fronting this. Is there a timeline that somewhere more of this money will go to the local municipalities and less to the region? Municipalities all have way more roads than the region does. If there's a 5-year period or a 10-year period when the region says, okay, we've gotten our money back and maybe we should be sharing more of this with the municipalities, that might be something we look at.
Through the mayor, good question. I actually think the revenue distribution could happen sooner than anticipated. We're really going to have to wait and see what our ticket volumes look like, and then see what the results of that are. It's hard to know, like we showed that slide where it showed how many charges were per camera. So until we kind of have probably a year under our belt, that's why I'm saying like the first year really is a break even. I think we'll see an opportunity for revenue distribution after that point in time. So I think I heard you reference the 5 to 10 year term. I feel like it is within that 1 to 3 year term. We should see some revenue over and above our costs that will be distributed to the locals 50-50.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan, one more.
So if I can continue, it was not the 50-50. At some point, more than 50% should go to the municipalities, because all of the municipalities probably individually have more roads than the region does in there. So at some point, it should go 60-40, 70-30, maybe 75-25, because it is the municipalities that have all the roads.
Okay. Any comment for that?
Yes, through the mayor. What we've based the revenue distribution on is the current under the current intermunicipal agreement, which is the 50-50 split. That being said, if that's something that that is the desire the local area councils and JPM to revisit that distribution. I'm sure that's something that can be done later on in the program. So we are looking for commitment to the 50-50 over years 1 to 3. And I think the plan is to revisit the agreement after year 2 and go back out to the councils and engage how is the program doing, what is the revenues being generated. And I think it would be fair at that point in time to consider a possible change to the distribution, and we would undertake a similar process at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Council, anybody else? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the presenters. Just a quick question, and if you can just answer in round numbers, what are the what's the capital cost of the speed cameras?
Okay. Through the mayor, it is actually a lease expenditure. I believe the ASE camera is about $58,000 a year per camera, and the red light camera is about $33,000 a year. And it's set through a set vendor agreement that was the City of Toronto that
Procured them.
Yeah, so the City of Toronto procured the leasing of those cameras, and the agreement states that the parties to is it the working group?
There's a steering committee.
The steering committee. So basically the Niagara region, if we implement the program, we're eligible to receive the same pricing that the City of Toronto negotiated. So that is a set price.
And through the mayor, if I could just add, so the cost that Beth has identified were capital costs to lease. The region has incorporated operating costs that also increase. So it's not just the leasing cost, there's the operating cost to oversee the program that increase those dollars quite substantially in order for us to operate the program. So there's capital and operating, just to differentiate between them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore, follow up.
Okay, so you're not going to buy them? You're going to lease them in perpetuity?
Through the mayor. So yes, the current procurement model that's been set up through the steering committee and led by the City of Toronto, the technology is leased through the vendor. So as the technology, for example, changes from a generation to generation, and as we continue to expand the program, the equipment is leased and will be switched out, again, as it needs to be switched out in coordination with the vendor under the lease agreement that we will go into to use the equipment.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? How is Toronto doing so far? They probably had the program one of the longest in Ontario, and they're obviously seeing profits. The whole safety issue aside, which is really the goal, they're seeing profits. And how long did that take? Do we know? I hate to put you on the spot, Carolyn, but a good guess would work. Hello?
Through the mayor. Sorry, we were just trying to get back between the slides here. Oh. So the City of Toronto started implementing. I understand right out of the gate when the approval came through the end of 2019. I think this chart we showed you indicated that they had 50 cameras. I just want to find that slide. 50 cameras. And the charge volume thus far that's been issued through the JPC is 280,000 tickets. So just to be clear, Mayor Gibson, the tickets that have been issued doesn't translate into dollars. So in working with a number of the municipalities, because again, there's a number of variables when it comes to cost recovery, that hasn't been provided yet by any of the municipalities as part of the steering committee conversations. On knowing, out of the 280,000, for example, tickets that have been issued, if they are now at a revenue stream versus still paying back for the 50 cameras that they've implemented. So there'll be further conversations again with all of our steering committee partners on, again, how they're expanding and different revenue that they're seeing, but that's still, again, under assessment by most municipalities because it's still so new in its infancy. And again, there's a lot of variables with whether the tickets are being challenged because it's a new program versus being paid by those who receive them pretty immediate. So there'll be more to come on that for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions of our presenters? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report as information, please. Councillor Gilmore, Councillor McClellan. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving that report? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we're now going to move on to the amending agreement to the Niagara Region Courts Intermunicipal Agreement, Vision Zero program. And we'll look to our operations manager, Mr. Nan, to speak to that, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Before you this evening is Public Works Staff Report 025-2021 regarding the amending agreement with the Niagara Region Courts Intermunicipal Agreement, the Vision Zero program. First of all, I'd like to thank Carolyn, Beth, and welcome Judy to the stage for presenting this evening. And also your hard work in responding to our staff's questions and comments as we were going through the program prior to this evening. Staff are glad to see that a program from the region will hopefully modify driver behavior, but also promote safety on the public right-of-way. We are additionally supportive of the funding model that will allow the program not to be only self-funded, but in time will provide funding to all municipalities so we may also in turn improve safety among our roadways within our communities. So at this time, staff are recommending council approve the recommendations contained in the report.
Okay, thank you, Richard. So I'll put a motion on the floor that report PWSR 25-2021 regarding an amending agreement to the Niagara Regional Courts Intermunicipal Agreement to facilitate the implementation of the region's Vision Zero program be received, and that the amending agreement to the Niagara Region Courts Intermunicipal Agreement as attached as Appendix G be approved for the purpose of advancing the Vision Zero program, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized and directed to execute the amending agreement to the Niagara Region Courts Intermunicipal Agreement. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridlin and Councillor Gilmore. And is there any discussion? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through Mayor. Again, just thanks for those that were working on bringing this to the table, and I'm just looking forward to the safety benefits. Whether it breaks even or not, it looks like there's an awful lot of safety benefits out of this, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cridlin. Any other comment? Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think a lot more of this should be going into engineering. Europe has gone from 1.5 times the population of us, same number of highway traffic accidents, and in the last 10 years they've been able to drop theirs to 17,000 a year, and we're at 40,000 in North America. They've put their money into engineering and redesigning intersections, crosswalks, all of that. I don't think they're any better drivers than us, but they've figured out how to do it. We just look at this. We've been writing speeding tickets, red light tickets for 100 years. It hasn't worked. We got to look at it a better way. Okay,
thank you. Any other comments? Look to Richard.
Thank you, Worship. Just to respond, John, I'm glad you mentioned it. The best part is finally this program is geared that the money has to go towards safety programs. So as the expenditures are finally paid off for the program and the revenues start being generated, that money now has to go towards safety programs. So finally we're going to have a revenue stream that we can hopefully count on, that we could put towards things like those engineering improvements, other safety initiatives in the neighborhood. So I'm glad that there's something that's coming that it's going to be automatically geared towards that for future.
Thank you, Richard. Any other, Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that as long as it's not to go buy more cameras so we give more tickets so we get more money. Let's try and save some lives out of this.
Yeah, it's a safety oriented for sure if it's working the way it's supposed to. Okay, if there's no further questions or discussion, the motion is on the floor and I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion? And that is unanimously passed. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Congratulations, and good luck as you move forward through the rest of the lambs.
Thank you. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night. Okay, we now move on to our next delegation, Shen Sivananathan. Request for extension to move the internet tower on Township Road allowance. Shen has submitted a delegation request for extension to move the internet tower erected on the Township's road allowance. Shen, you have 10 minutes, and then we'll go from there after that, ask some questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Gibson. Good evening, councillors. As you probably recall, I came here in October looking to get or submit for a request to keep our internet tower on the road allowance. I withdrew that and said I was going to move that tower immediately. It seems I had overestimated how quickly I could move it. I got in touch with the guy that installed the tower, and he said that he was in Nunavut doing a police contract and would be back at the end of fall. Reached back out to him, and he said he's completely booked right now. I've contacted Enwick, who was the provider of our internet services, and they recommended another guy who said he can add another tower on our property but cannot remove the other one. And so all I'm asking for is an extension till spring of 2022, which the guy that installed the tower said he would be able to remove it. Hopefully, the ground is thawed by then and shouldn't be a problem to have it removed. I have the funds available, I can do it right now, but I just don't have the means or the resources to do so. So looking for an extension if possible.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Councillor McClellan?
So I have a comment. The night you said you'd move it immediately, I suggested we give you more time. I know in this business there's very few people that install these and take them down. I didn't think you'd be anywhere near done in the time you said, and obviously I should have asked you to go and get a time frame and come back. Yeah. I didn't, so that's, and you're probably pretty naive at it, and I understand it takes time to get people to do these jobs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of our presenter? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Shen. We're going to move on to Tim McAvoy and Elaine McAvoy regarding concerns for the extension request for removal of that internet tower. I believe that they're online here. They submitted a delegation to comment on the request for the extension. You may turn your camera on and your microphone, Mr. McAvoy, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm filling in for my sister, Mary Barchigi. She's been helping my mother on this issue, was unable to attend due to some knee surgery. I provided you with some talking notes already, but rather than read them back to you, I just want to highlight a couple of the items. My sister spoke with an approved contractor, the NWIC internet provider. That's included in your package, and it's an email. Initially on the strength of the towers, because she was asking that specific question. During the conversation, he also let her know he was available if someone needs his services. So Professional Antenna Limited apparently is available. So I'll leave that with you. The first real point of my delegation is to encourage moving forward with a plan that everyone can live with. In my supplied notes, I gave a few ideas that might be considered. This might be simplistic, but perhaps if Wainfleet staff could review this when the project is refreshed, it could help bring the neighborhood together in a more cooperative way. My current concern is regarding the safety. I don't know much about these towers, but I'm hoping until the site is remediated that you can address this issue, as it could literally impact my mother's house and property. And I'll only take one more minute of your time. One of my wife's favorite sayings is that we're just caretakers of our property. She says we need to leave it better than we found it. And as you get older, that becomes a lot more meaningful. 100 years ago, my grandfather was the caretaker of the property my mother lives on right now. It had to be sold when he passed away, but years later, my father was fortunate enough to buy it again. In the 70s, when the lake was threatening shorelines with erosion, my father had an engineered seawall built to protect their home. At the same time, he received permission from the township to extend the wall in front of the road allowance, which is still protected. As all properties there are on an angle, the actual road allowance footage is probably over 70 feet. I have no idea what that would cost in today's dollars. There might be a counselor or two who has more experience than I do. But for 45 years, the wall has held up pretty well until the October storm 2 years ago. It punched two pretty large holes in the wall. My mother's share was $80,000. There was other damage too, but that was just the wall. Ironically, given my mother's health, she isn't physically able to get to the beach anymore, and she never actually saw the damage. But she's the caretaker, and she paid for that repair. Another road allowance is a wild and kind of unstable piece of land, which also gives rise to a legal liability exposure, which has been previously outlined by Wainfleet staff. I'm not qualified to advise you where your obligations lie, but as elected officials, you're the caretakers here. And really, that's the only point I really wanted to make tonight. So thank you for your time.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much for your presentation. Any discussion or questions from council on to our presenter? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I guess we're looking for some discussion on this, where we want to go as a council in regards to this tower that's sitting on our property. Anybody like to start that off? Discussions? Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you both for speaking on this. I think it comes down to policy, and our encroachment policy as it stands is it can't happen. I understand both sides here, but again, I have to go back to the policy, and we did give you time to move it. I don't know what services are out there to move it. I would think that the amount of time we gave you might have been sufficient. I could be wrong. I would be asking you to move it as well. Like, policy is a policy. If somebody had built a shed there, we'd have them move it. So I'm not sure where to go with this. Like, is there services out there? Like, have you tried other services besides the person who?
Councillor, we're supposed to keep our comments to council, and then we can ask him.
Got it.
Sorry.
You didn't tell me that, but okay.
You just told, well, I just got notified.
You just got told. Okay, there you go. My comment is it's encroachment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLeod.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So with what I do for a day job, I understand the health and safety risks that a company is coming into at this time of year to try and get it. If you get, they climb this tower and take it apart piece by piece and lower it down. So as they're going up and lower it, if there's ice buildup on it that we may not have on the ground, but we have it up 100 feet, if there's all this, I can see why these guys are in no rush to get out here and go at this along the lakeshore. You know, I have personally been involved in setting up 100-meter towers in Wainfleet, and yes, it is slow going, it is dangerous, and you want to do it in good weather. I maybe don't like the fact that it's not coming down right now, but I don't want to see anybody get hurt doing it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and it was good to hear the second delegation, because I think we didn't hear that the first time we heard Shen speak to us. So I'm glad we've had another side to consider this matter. Maybe through you, Mayor, just to staff, if we decide to have the township now take this on, could you walk me through perhaps the liability? So I believe, I'm actually not sure where the liability lies at the moment. We now know this is on our township. We've now agreed in October that, you know, we would be in this position for about 30 days. We're now at 60. I'd like to move us in the right direction for liability. And so perhaps through you, Mayor, staff can comment on that process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I'll start off and then hand it over to Richard to follow up. So I guess there are two options. Again, one is require the tower to come down immediately. The other is to permit it to stay a little longer. And I guess in response to Councillor Cridlin, If the intent of council is to permit the tower to stay a little longer, I think from a staff perspective, we would be recommending that a temporary encroachment agreement be executed with the township, very clearly identifying the responsibilities of the parties, including firm timelines about when the tower is to be removed, and including appropriate liability coverage in the form of insurance that names both the municipality additionally insured, but also ensures that if any damage were to occur to the tower that could cause damage to abutting properties, that there is appropriate coverage in place to ensure that some sort of compensation can be credited, if you will, as a result of that tower being on our land. Again, it would be a typical encroachment agreement with a very specified term. And again, Richard probably deals with them more often than not, so he may have some additional details to provide.
Yes, so through your worship to members of council, yeah, an encroachment agreement is, they basically are going to be paid to allow it to stay there for a period of time. The biggest point is to cover us from a liability standpoint, as Will had mentioned. We need to get the insurance coverage in place to protect the township from any liability because of the encroachment as well. Additionally, as he mentioned, it would also provide insurance for the abutting property owners, in this case would be the McAvoys, that would be able to provide some coverage for them as well. And again, it would be at the expense of the encroachment permit.
Okay, that sounds reasonable to me. Taking into my thoughts, Councillor McClellan's concern re the safety and that, I understand that. The presenter's information about he's having trouble finding somebody, but then we also have to protect the township as well. So I would think that a firm date with a liability certificate as well, paid for by the presenter, would look after the incident for now. And on that date, it would have to be down, or we would have to pay to have it taken down. And that's my thoughts anyway, unless anybody else has something else. Councillor Cridland?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm not quite sure. I want to be sure when we vote on this, because last time when we voted on this, it didn't quite get to the timelines and the details that we need, that this gets executed the way we're understanding it tonight. So I want to add that the clerk's got the proper motion and that this isn't coming before us again if it can be avoided. So I want to look to Richard that if we can have an order issued tonight and the extension, whereby that I know that the staff is proceeding knowing that there's not going to be a renewal in April. The reason we're granting it is I don't know if there's contractors. In other words, if our staff can get to this and get it done in 2 weeks, then why wouldn't I go in that direction?
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Through your worship, in the encroachment agreement, it's a contract. In that encroachment agreement, it will have specific dates that it must be down by, or additional, or it will come down right away thereafter at their expense. Whether it's immediately with us or contractor, it won't be coming back to council. It'll be an automatic set in the agreement that it will be removed by that date.
Go ahead, Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks for that clarification. Then I think I'm just left with the date. So I'm comfortable with the liability and we're clear where that's going to sit. So then I'm going to go back to staff. April 15th happens to be a date that the resident is asking for. Can staff comment whether that's reasonable or unreasonable given circumstances or climate or whatever Richard deems appropriate? Thank you.
Okay, Richard, did you have a response there for Councillor Cridland?
Through your worship, I haven't been in contact with the contractor, and maybe we can follow up with Mr. Shen, and I can actually be in contact with the contractor. But again, it's going to be a fixed date whatever council chooses that to be, that will go into the agreement. And if it's not down, it will come down.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's a little more to this than just saying, okay, the gentleman didn't get it down on April 1st, so we're gonna call somebody and they're gonna tell us we have to wait 6 months to get them here. So I would suggest that the owner have his contractor give him a firm date when it'll be down by, and that's what we write our contract to. Because, Richard, you can call somebody today and they may not tell you they can get here for 6 months. So if he's got somebody that says they'll be in by April 15th and have it down, that's the date if it's April 25th or if it's March. I would let his contractor tell us when he can come. Otherwise, we've got to pre-book somebody now and put a deposit down to get him here. This isn't something you call off the local Home Hardware and say, come and put up a 100-foot tower.
Yeah, thank you. Richard.
Through your worship, sorry, I was just reading the actual delegation's request, and he said his contractor, he needed till April 30th in securing for a deal with his contractor. So instead of leaving it open-ended for staff to put that number in, I would suggest that if that's the case, we use the applicant's number or date, and we actually affix the April 30th date to it.
Okay, so I'll look to the clerk there to start forming a motion or documenting it. I think that is a good date, April 30th, because it is, as per what Richard just said, that his contractor said he could have it done by April 30th. Also within that motion, we want to have proof of insurance on that, and the parameters of the insurance is for the tower and abutting properties, taking into consideration Mr. McAvoy's concerns. That needs to be in the insurance policy as well. And then the time frame of when that insurance is done and presented to us, I would say within days, like very soon. That's just a matter of getting a hold of your insurance company and asking for that policy. Anybody else? William?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, part of that motion should direct the mayor and clerk to prepare and execute the necessary agreement, encroachment agreement, as per the discussions and as per the motion. Otherwise, we're going to actually have to come back to you again on January 4th to actually get the agreement authorized. So if we could have a clause in there authorizing the mayor and clerk to prepare and execute the encroachment agreement in accordance with the discussions. The only other comment I would make is that April 30th does fall on a Saturday, so technically the following Monday would be the effective date. I think April 30th can stay. It's just from an enforcement perspective or from a follow-up perspective, it would be early May.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, and thank you for the care in building the motion, because I think that's what we're doing. And is it appropriate then, I think I heard fees that are going to be there for making this either cost neutral, like a permit, et cetera. So that would be collected. And then the other thing that again, the language, and again, building on what Councillor McClellan's suggesting, is that can we include something where staff is going to look at having a contractor of ours available on April 30th?
I look to the CAO to speak to that, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned, April 30th is a Saturday, so we could certainly include language in the encroachment agreement that would provide that if the tower is not removed by April 30th, then on May 2nd, which is the first working day thereafter, the township would have the ability to have its forces, again, it wouldn't be town staff, it would be a professional company due to the size of the tower and its complexity, commence at that stage on May 2nd.
I also wonder, I'm just thinking out loud here, if there shouldn't be, if it's not down by April 30th, should there start to be a daily levy or a weekly levy for because it could sit for another 6 months, and we don't want that. So a levy of some sort applied daily or weekly would assist in making sure that tower got taken down. Councillor McCollum?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, having been involved in, I think it was 3 of them that we put up. In June and July, we lost 6 or 7 days that we couldn't work because of the wind putting these up. This is not a take it lightly job. People's lives are at stake when you're putting this up and down. So, I mean, I understand we're saying April 30th, but if you get 7 days of wind when the guy shows up, they're sitting on the ground twiddling their thumbs. They can't do anything. I mean, we've got to have a little bit of common sense about this and say, okay, if there's extenuating circumstances, it goes, let's have a date that we want it done by and go by that and have some reasonable.
Okay, so we stay with April 30th as the date, and we'll trust, Shen, that you are before that, hopefully. And we'll look to that immediately to receive that insurance certificate, proof of insurance for our property, the adjacent properties, and the agreement as per Will's comments, allowing us to execute that. Meredith, do you have all that as the motion? You have it all? Any other comments to Councillor Cridlin? Sorry, I looked over there first.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to ask for a recorded vote on this then, please.
Sorry, you called the vote?
Sorry.
Recorded
I know
vote,
we're
sorry.
getting close to the motion coming, so if I could just ask for a recorded vote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Vliet.
Through Mr. Mayor, I just want to note that there's other objections to this tower staying up. And I have to just say that it's an encroachment, and I think we're setting a precedent here. It's a slippery slope. We have a lot of road allowances out there that people could say, hey, this is what happened and this is what you did. I want the same treatment.
Yeah, your point is very valid. Understanding in this case here that there are parameters which control when it can come down, when it can't. It definitely is a slippery slope. I agree with that completely. But if we can't get someone to get it down until warmer weather, then you're controlled by that. Okay, so the motion, do I ask the clerk to read the motion back to us, please? Oh. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I have here is that the township enter into a temporary encroachment agreement with the landowner with liability included, which includes the abutting landowners, and a specific date of removal included in the agreement being April 30th, 2022. That if the tower is not removed by April 30th, the township will commence removal on May 2nd, 2022, and that the mayor and clerk prepare the encroachment agreement in accordance with council discussion.
And I think we should include in there all removal costs be contributed back to the Mr. Shen there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we could have the motion reference the township's encroachment policy, that already includes all of the removal costs. And just to advise Mr. Shen that there are, for example, there's normally an application fee for encroachments. And there are fees associated with the actual legal agreement in certain situations, which may be applicable. Again, it's not a large amount, but again, that is just intended to cover the costs incurred by the municipality in preparing, potentially registering this agreement on title if that's necessary. Again, we have an in-house solicitor now who could assist us with the agreement, because this is a bit of a different type of agreement to a normal encroachment where we have standard templates that we use to try and keep costs down. But we'll certainly try to keep costs to a minimum. Richard had his hand up, and then I see a question from the delegation as well.
Okay, go ahead, Richard, first.
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, I wanted to reiterate, all the processes are in our encroachment agreement now, and we will be following that policy as we proceed through it. And again, the fees, associated costs incurred through that process, and anything required at our end to have that process done is incurred as part of that process, as part of our policy.
Thank you. I look to Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. The only problem that I see is that where it says that on May the 2nd, we, the township, are going to begin, like, we're not running Pizza Hut here, as Councillor McClellan alluded to. We'll be waiting 6 more months. I think the message here is that nothing personal, but we don't want to see you back here again about this. So let's just get it done. And the only other comment that I would make is that I think it might be wise to have your contractor CC the CAO in the correspondence so that we have, we have some assurance of the timeline. And I'm sure that you're hearing us loud and clear. But sorry, through the mayor, I'm sure that you're hearing us loud and clear. But you can say that we're going to commence something on May the 2nd. We're not commencing anything on May the 2nd, except asking Richard to go out and secure someone for 6 months after that. So to me, that comment, or that part of the motion is moot.
The option, of course, is that Richard start now securing someone for May the 2nd with the proviso that it may or may not happen. So that's a potential as
okay,
well.
But then we have to put someone on retainer. And I don't think that we want to do that, and that's just going to be more cost. I think I come back to my comment. The point is, don't come back and ask for any more time. That's
okay, thank you. Also, just one more point within the motion, we should have in there as well that we receive proof of insurance by this Friday. That's 3 days to go and obtain insurance as per our request. Councillor McClellan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a couple of things. I don't know if you can get insurance for what we're asking for by Friday for the average Joe to go out and get. You're working for $2 million, I'm guessing, or 5? Yes, so I don't know that the average Joe can run out and get that. Maybe give him a week to do it. I don't know. And the other thing I was going to suggest is when his contractor shows up, if he gets a blow day, he gets a day they can't do it, to please inform Richard so that he knows you lost the day, your guy is there. He can make note of that so nobody comes back and says, hey, you didn't do your due diligence and you didn't try. That guy, like I said, we lost 6 or 7 days in the middle of June because of wind that was too strong. So I just hate to see somebody come back in April.
Yep.
And
okay, thank you, Councillor McClellan. Mr. Sivananathan, you just pushed the button there, so it's recorded. You have another.
Yeah, so I just have, so I appreciate the consideration on this. I mean, like, I have the means to move it, and I will move it. It's not a question about that. I assumed I was going to come in, and it was going to be, yes, we understand it's windy out there, and cannot be secured, and we'll be able to do it on April 30th. Clearly, that is not the case. If, Richard or anyone has contacts that can do this, and it sounds like Tim McAvoy has someone, like, I will do it tomorrow. Like, I work in venture capital. It's Q4, and we've got a ton of businesses we're funding right now. And so I made 2 to 3 calls, and those people were not available. If this is like clearly such a big issue that I'm happy to move it, I need a resource to do so. And everyone seems to be very kind of aggravated or kind of agitated by the situation. I apologize if that's the case. I'm looking for internet, like I said the last time. I just need to work. That's all. And so if anyone has contacts, Tim, if you have contacts, then just like send them to me and I'll get it done. And I really appreciate the consideration here.
Okay, thank you. And your genuineness is showing through, and I know you want to get this done, and we want to get it done.
I'd also like to say that it's moving 6 feet. I'm paying $10,000 to move it 6 feet, and it's absurd. I really just don't understand the It seems really ridiculous, but again, if anyone has a contact, then just send it to me and I'll get it done.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion has been read back to us, and Councillor Cridlin wanted a recorded vote.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. The last piece was the proof of insurance. Are we including that or are we not?
Yes.
Okay, and are we doing it by
Give it a
specific-
week.
1 week, yes?
Pick a date. What's today? The 7th by the 15th.
Okay.
Proof of insurance provided.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think we need to specify. That'll be covered off in the agreement. So
Oh, okay.
it's covered off, so.
Good. Okay. So that is the motion and recorded vote on that. Councillor McClellan? Councillor Van Vliet?
Opposed.
Councillor Cridland?
Opposed.
Councillor Gilmore?
Favor.
And I am in favor. So that is carried. Okay, thank you. We now move on to Lori Dayball, delegate, re 44-2021 being a bylaw to close and covey part of a public road being the road allowance and the official plan. Lori submitted a delegation to provide comments on the consideration of this bylaw. It's listed on the agenda. Ms. Dayball, you have 10 minutes, and welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Mayor Gibson and Council, again, my name is Lori Dayball. I live at 10128 Lakeshore Road, the Welcome to Wainfleet property at the Port Colborne-Wainfleet boundary along Lakeshore. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. You have a bylaw number 44-2021 on your agenda, which, when enacted, would sell a portion of a road allowance to the adjacent property owner. I suggest that prior to doing this, additional steps are required. The bylaw does describe the subject lands as a road allowance, but does not include the fact that the road allowance ends at Lake Erie. The township's official plan is very clear regarding the public ownership of Lake Erie waterfront lands. And in fact, section 2.5.6.1 states, it is a policy of the township that publicly owned Lake Erie waterfront lands are to be maintained in public ownership, including any concession road stubs, are to be maintained in public ownership. The township's official plan is very clear, and this policy has not changed for 200 years. The language has, each time the official plan came to council, but the protection of these lands has been maintained throughout. It's my understanding that an official plan amendment would be required for this sale to occur. And so I respectfully request that the Township of Wainfleet follow the procedures required before making this significant and precedent-setting decision. No, I'm not a planner. I'm simply a ratepayer that went through a similar experience. And it's the documents that I attached to you that document that very experience in 2012, when a beach stub, as they're known, was to be sold. The reason was because of an encroachment. And the actual beach stub is the very one we're discussing this evening. And I gotta admit, that's what drew me to the agenda and where I found this bylaw. It was determined that an encroachment agreement would be signed instead, and that that beach stub would not be sold. The sale of a road allowance that ends at Lake Erie, this matter is, as Councillor Van Vliet said earlier, maybe it's a slippery slope. So I would just encourage council to consider the additional steps that may be necessary prior to this sale going through. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions of our presenter? No. Okay, I see no questions. Any other discussion on this? Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Perhaps staff can comment on the comments from the presenter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps we could have the planner provide some comment.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen and show the property in question for the bylaw. So in terms of my comments on the delegation and the bylaws before council this evening, I would say that in this particular circumstances, the situation is unique, and I don't feel like we're setting precedent with the disposal of this road allowance. So in this instance, we only own half of the road allowance. It's shared with Haldimand County. And so part 1 and part 2 is what's owned by the township. The township previously permitted a private encroachment, being a shoreline protection along the entire frontage of the township's portion of the road allowance. And additionally, there was a cottage that was significantly within our road allowance. That cottage has since been removed because the foundation experienced was undermined due to erosion, and you can kind of see some of the erosion in the aerial imagery that's on your screen right now. So the break wall ends here, and so erosion has continually kind of come up and has affected this cottage, and the property owner has removed it. And that was because it was unsafe. So the shoreline protection that currently exists in the township's portion of the road allowance effectively cuts off public access to the lake. There's no stairs or a means of access beyond the break wall. So the delegate did reference policy 2.5.6.1 of the official plan in terms of its policy that the township, that publicly owned Lake Erie waterfront lands are to be maintained in public ownership, including any concession road stubs. We also have an additional policy in section 3.9.10 that says, in order to ensure public waterfront access, the township will endeavor to not sell public lands along the Lake Erie shoreline that are being used for waterfront public access, unless it facilitates a suitable alternative that provides for improved access nearby. So again, our road allowance is not being used to access the beach. The shore wall protection there that councils in the past had previously authorized effectively cut off that access. I will note that staff continue to look for opportunities to improve some of our beach accesses so that the public has a means of accessing Lake Erie to achieve these goals in our official plan. And the greater concern here is the impact to public safety for continual erosion, which we are seeing year after year with the storms.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Questions or comments to Sarah? Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So one question would be, has the Haldimand portion been sold off yet? Do you know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan. No, it hasn't been sold yet, but they're working through that process, and that will be going to their council shortly.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor McClellan.
So if we do not sell it, or if we need an official plan amendment, I take it that's a number of years away, but there is nothing really stopping us from putting a staircase down to that beach if that was so desired by the town right now?
Well, it is within our road allowance. The structure was not constructed by us. We could look into funds for providing that access. But the intent of the applicant to purchase this road allowance is to continue that shoreline protection along into Haldimand County so that the first property in Haldimand County connects there, and so that the shoreline protection is continuous along that section of the lakeshore, so that we don't have this water coming in behind the break wall and creeping up towards Lakeshore Road.
Okay, thank you.
So it's my opinion that an official plan amendment isn't needed. The policies are not shall. They're goals and objectives to achieve when we're looking at waterfront access, and this road allowance currently is not providing access.
Okay, Councillor McClellan, you had a follow-up?
I'll let it go at that for now.
Okay, William.
Mr. Mayor, I take this opportunity and again, confirm and thank Sarah for her professional planning advice. But we actually have the advantage now of having a second professional planner also on staff, I'm wondering if I could ask Lindsay, our Manager of Community and Development Services, to also comment on the need, if there is one, for an official plan amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, it's also my opinion that an official plan amendment is not required for the sale and disposal of these lands. We have other policies in the official plan as well that allow for protection in the environmental protection zone, that allows for hazard lands to be adequately addressed. In this case, the erosion over the years has resulted in an area that's not desirable for us to allow for public access here. So again, it's our opinion that it does not need an official plan amendment to be sold.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. My only other question would be, is there an imminent rush to close this transaction?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council. And I know this is a process that has been going on for quite some time. Part of the sort of impetus, or part of the considerations that were previously flagged for Council's consideration, were the liability aspects of that sort of erosion that is sort of creeping up and in behind the shore wall. And as was demonstrated in the photos that Sarah had brought up, part of that erosion has sort of taken down one house already. It is sort of creeping around and threatening another. And I think all of that together has sort of driven, if you will, or helped support part of the decision-making process that Council's been doing over the last several months on this. So is there an urgent need? There is a need. It is a strong demonstrated need to sort of minimize our exposure to liability in this situation. So the urgency of it depends on the next storm that hits and what sort of effect it might have on the abutting property owners.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Gilmore? No, Councillor Cridlin?
Again, through you, Mayor, I certainly want to thank the delegation, because it's a constant reminder of the sensitivity and the importance of these, I'll say, discussions, transactions, and how important we hold the official plan. So really just a call out to bring this to our awareness. Hopefully you're seeing some information here that perhaps wasn't available to you earlier. So thank you, staff, for having that ready. And again, going forward, as we get to where we get to open up the official plan again, these things will continue to come up. So this is an area that's very, very sensitive. So again, I want to thank the delegation and the staff for their comments tonight.
Okay, thank you for those comments. So a motion, I guess, is what I'm looking for from somebody. We're either going to make a motion to leave it as is, or to William?
Through Mr. Mayor, again, the two options are, one, receive the delegation as information and thank them for the presenting, or the other option is receive as information and request additional information from staff. I think staff have done a fairly decent job of covering off the issues. I'm not sure there's anything additional they could provide. But again, the other alternative, the delegation was requesting that the township proceed through an official plan amendment process. Again, the planning staff are pretty confident that that's not a requirement here. But again, if that is the will of council, we're at your direction.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLeod.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I know both planners said they don't think it's a requirement. Is there any way to know for sure it's not a requirement? And do we ask our legal counsel on this before we go and do something, and then have somebody come back saying you broke your own rules? We're supposed to be the rule keepers, right? So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we have both planners, registered professional planners, who have provided comment. I think their opinions in matters relating to the official plan are more than satisfactory to meet the threshold in this case. If you refer to the, for example, memorandum that was provided by the delegates suggesting that an OP was required back 10 years ago, I believe, 9 years ago, that was prepared by a planner based on the specific circumstances there. It was a regional planner that provided that. And again, here we have our two local planners making it clear that there is not an OPA required here.
Okay, thank you. So anyone interested in making a motion to simply receive the delegates' report? Or Councillor Gilmore makes that motion? To receive it, yes. Councillor Van Vliet seconds it. Any further discussion? Councillor Gilmore?
Yeah, well, we'll receive the delegation. We can deal with the bylaw when it comes time to deal with bylaws if we want to.
Okay, so to receive the delegation, motion's on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much to the delegate. Okay, move on to our admin staff report, the COVID impact report.
Through you, Mr. Council, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, apologies, getting ahead of myself. Again, a just very quick overview. COVID situation continues to progress. There are reports of added cases occurring both in Niagara, across the province, and across the country. Some of it is because of new variants. Others are just because of reopening protocols. In response to that, the Regional Medical Officer of Health did issue some instructions last week regarding the operation of various sports and recreation facilities that is impacting on our arena operations, and staff are currently in the midst of preparing a new policy framework as instructed by the Medical Officer of Health to govern the operations of the Wainfleet Arena in the coming days. We have a couple of deadlines coming up, one in the end of this week, one on Christmas Day, and we will be implementing the rules provided by the Regional Medical Officer of Health. Aside from that, things continue, and we continue to monitor.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion to admin staff report 35-2021 respecting COVID-19 impact report be received as information, and mover seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridlin, Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving that report, and that is carried. Thank you. We move on to staff report 36-2021, the write-off of property tax for taxation years. And we look to our treasurer, Ms. Louie, to advise us on that, please.
Thank you. So through the mayor to all of council, administrative staff report 36 is to request approval to do a section 354 write-off for uncollectible taxes. So the subject property was assigned a roll number and omitted taxes were added to the tax roll effective 2010. So all collection measures have been considered or exhausted, and staff deem these taxes to be uncollectible. So the assessment of the subject property has since been reduced to $9 per year by MPAC. So if council were to approve the write-off of the uncollectible taxes, the annual tax bill going forward on this property would be 13 cents per year. And the municipal portion of the write-off being requested is $1,092.26, which dates back to 2010.
Okay, thank you. Is this the one that's underwater or partially underwater? That's the other one?
So through the mayor to all of council, yeah, this is the laneway one.
Okay, thank you. So a motion being the admin staff report respecting the write-off of property tax be received, and that council approve the attached application pursuant to section 354 of the Municipal Act 2001, numbered 2021-01, to write off the balance owing in the amount of $1,092.26. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Cridlin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 37, 2021, write-off of property tax for the taxation years 2011 to 2021. And we'll look to our treasurer, Ms. Louie, again to speak to that, please.
Thank you. So through the Mayor to all of Council, Administrative Staff Report 37 is similar to the previous staff report. So the purpose of the report is to request approval to write off the taxes as uncollectible pursuant to Section 354 of the Municipal Act. So the subject property was assigned a roll number and omitted taxes were added to the tax roll effective 2011. So efforts to locate the owner have been made and all collection measures have been exhausted with the exception of a tax sale. Staff feel the likelihood of a successful tax sale to be extremely low considering the size and shape of the subject property as it is landlocked and predominantly underwater. The assessment of the subject property has since been reduced to $400 per year by MPAC, which would yield a tax bill annually of $5.90. And the cost of the requested write-off to the municipality would be $3,416.59. So these two applications are the only two Section 354 applications that have been presented before Council in 2021, and combined has a financial impact of $4,508.85.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Louie. So the motion being that Admin Staff Report 37, 2021, respecting the write-off of property tax be received, and that Council approve the attached application pursuant to Section 354 of the Municipal Act 2001, number 2021-02, to write off the balance owing in the amount of $3,416.59. Can I have a mover seconder for that, please? Councillor McClellan, Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we move on to drainage staff reports. I look to Mr. Jemison regarding the consolidated South Wainfleet drain.
Great. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of Council. So Drainage Staff Report 17 for 2021 is recommending updating and improving the consolidated South Wainfleet drain number 13. This drain is about 11 kilometers long and is a major outlet in our CSW system. It provides outlet for 18 other municipal drains. Total watershed is about 8,000 acres. The drain includes an 8-foot by 8-foot concrete box culvert, about 55 meters long. It was constructed in 1907 and it travels under Feeder Road East, the Feeder Canal itself, and then Clarendon Road East. So in the summer of 2021, we received above average amount of rain, including a major summer storm in July. It identified that concrete culvert was holding back a significant amount of water. We did some extensive field work trying to find some problems, and we ended up doing some brushing and debris removal with our excavator immediately upstream of that culvert, but it was creating a significant bottleneck. At that point, we retained Ellis Engineering, who typically complete our bridge inspections, to do a condition assessment on that culvert. That inspection recommended the rehabilitation of the structure in the next 1 to 5 years, with some extensive concrete repair to the sidewalls, soffit, wing walls, and reconstructing the south slope and head wall. In our research, we also identified that there was a culvert removed in 1996 in that same general vicinity that acted as a relief culvert when it fell into disrepair. So in order to repair or replace this culvert to meet the modern standards and the current drainage needs of the watershed, staff are recommending updating the engineer's report. I'd be happy to receive any questions.
Okay, thank you. Motion being that Drainage Staff Report 17, 2021, respecting the consolidated South Wainfleet drain number 13 be received, and that Council appoint Sprite Associates, Engineers and Architects under the Drainage Act to update and improve the consolidated South Wainfleet drain 13. Mover seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor McClellan, and discussion. Questions? Councillor Van Vliet.
Thanks for the report, Mark. I just wanted to note through you, Mr. Mayor, that this drain came before us at committee, at the Drainage Committee, and one of the farmers we know sustained crop damage because of the drain. This is in really bad shape. And if you note in the, it wasn't operation manager at the time, I don't know what his title was at the time. In his report, it said that they had like unprecedented rain in 1996. And we've had rain like this since, I don't know, July going forward. So I just want to open everybody's eyes that drainage is going to be even a bigger thing. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mark. Question for you. That drain that was closed up, you mentioned it, the size and shape of it then. So the idea would be to rebuild that, or I guess the engineer will give you the thing, but you're going to need either a bigger box culvert than we have now, or to repair our box culvert and then put a new side culvert in to collect the overflow. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've kind of spitballed a couple ideas with the engineer, but first step would be, yes, to identify how much water needs to go through there and then size it appropriately, either with a brand new bigger or twin it to that capacity. Yeah.
So then, the same as Councilor Van Vliet said, we got calls, all of us did. I actually went out and tried to walk part of it and follow it because I'm not familiar with them all, but it appears to me that then goes in and it ends up at the Welland River. But from where we hit and get into the Welland River, all of that needs to be cleaned right down to the river, right? It's all a mess. There's big trees in it. There's everything else. So would that all? I do, yeah. I guess I was leaning back looking at him around Meredith then. But so that at that point then, would it entail cleaning all the way down to the river, or just what we have now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So upstream of this, we have CSW Drain 1, which is the mill race, and then the sanctioned municipal drain ends just north of Forks Road. So the township has the ability to maintain that section, and we intend to complete maintenance on there very soon. But from that point on, approximately, I would say just a little west of Shields Road to the river, we do not have municipal drain status, so the township cannot clean that water course out.
So that's why that part is as bad as it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the drainage superintendent and I were out after that last storm to a couple of sites, and the amount of damage, some of the residents called, and I went out to see them, and the damage was extensive. So maintaining our drains here in Wainfleet is one of the most important things that we do, bar none, and it's important that we expend the effort and the money and monitor our drains, and our full-time drainage superintendent does a good job of that, and it's very much a required position. So it's good. This is a good move and step forward. So motion is on the floor. It's been moved and seconded, and I look for a vote on that. All in favor? And that is received. Thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to the Casey Drain and the Casey Drain North Extension. And again, we look to our drainage superintendent, Mark Jemison, to speak to that, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So Drainage Staff Report 18 for 2021 is a follow-up to Drainage Staff Report 7 from this year, where we discussed the management options for the Casey Drain and Casey Drain North. This drainage system is the only drain that outlets to Lake Erie, generally from Ostron Corner south is the area that it covers. The report was most recently updated in 1949, which is fairly out of date, and based on current practices, we're not able to complete maintenance on the drain with that report. I've received more complaints and inquiries from landowners on this drain than any other, mainly due to the lakeside outlet, but this also serves quite a few commercial properties and residential areas as well. So the recommendation moving forward is to update and modernize the report to facilitate that maintenance of the existing municipal drain. Through the Drainage Act process, it would allow for the public consultation that's built into the Drainage Act to allow any requests that may come forward from those in the watershed. I'd be happy to receive any questions.
Okay, thank you. So the motion being that Drainage Staff Report 18-2021 respecting the Casey Drain and Casey Drain North Extension be received, and that council appoint R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited under the Drainage Act to undertake an improvement project for the Casey Drain and Casey Drain North Extension. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor McGilmore and Councillor McClellan. And any discussions or questions? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Through you, Mayor, to Mark. Just again, in general, this one wasn't initiated, I understand, really from a specific resident or concern, just a general concern. So the public process for this, could you just remind me again how soon the public might be aware that this process is going to start? Again, just a little bit more of what might be coming if we approve this. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So the Drainage Act has built-in communication policies and dates for outlining when we have to communicate the meetings that are sanctioned under the Drainage Act. So the first step is that we have to contact the regulatory agencies before holding any meetings. So we'd be looking at probably distributing a mail out about initiating the project in the next 60 days. Following that, there would be an on-site meeting where all the impacted landowners would be invited to come to a meeting, and depending on what restrictions are at that time, we've held drainage meetings both in person, online, and hybrid models. So we have lots of options for that, especially considering the cottage community, and a lot of them live outside of the area. So I think we'll be looking to make sure that type of communication is facilitated. Once the design process is initiated following that meeting, we typically hold a meeting that isn't sanctioned under the Drainage Act or required under the Drainage Act to go over the design in a preliminary fashion before it comes presented to council. And landowners would, again, be invited to that through the mail and have the ability to comment on the report. It would come then to the meeting to consider to council, and residents, again, would have the ability to comment there. And then further, the meeting that we held before council tonight, the Court of Revision, the public would have the opportunity at that point. So we've got a bit of time before the project is kicked off, but on our drainage website, portion of the website, we have a list of active and ongoing projects. If this were to be approved tonight, it would be added to that list with a contact to both myself and the appointed engineer for landowners to reach out.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. And just, I want to just, to the public, there's a good point there from our drainage superintendent. You can go to our website, and there is a section in there that covers off the drains, it maps the drains, it speaks about the Act, and if you're not sure about anything on the Drainage Act, you can access it all through our website by going to the drainage section there. It's actually really good. And so I encourage everyone, if you have any questions at all, that's the first step to do, is go from there and then contact us. Okay, any other questions or discussions? Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I've had this discussion with Mark a little earlier tonight, but just for the public's information. So, Mark, when because we weren't petitioned to do this, so the town is doing it, at any point, if we get a recommendation that comes back at a very high dollar value and the proportions to the most of the problem that I see is closest to the lake, and that's where we get our complaints. So my understanding is it's the people that benefit the most get the biggest bill. So it's not going to be farmers to the north of them. It'll be right along the lakeshore portion. So at any point, we don't have to go forward with this if the public says, hey, we can't afford what this engineer has come up with. It's not that we're going to force a big bill on somebody, right? So it's just so the public knows that, and they'll see what their apportionment is, and then it'll be their call if we're going to go forward with it. And I don't know where you call. Is it 51% go, then it goes, or I don't know how that works. So.
Yeah, we spoke about this today, so I'll look to the drainage superintendent to explain it, please.
Great. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So because the township is initiating this report, it can carry on and get kicked off. It's different than a petition process. So this is an existing municipal drain, and we're looking to update it. That being said, our scope of this project is to update it for maintenance. So to enable us to do maintenance on the existing drain. the costs of those projects that scope of the project will be discussed at the meetings, and landowners will have the ability to comment at that point, and it can be scaled up, it can be scaled down. If there's culverts need to be shared and be placed on property lines to save dollars, then that's possible. There is also, an appeal process that we followed through with other municipal drains that landowners have the ability to discuss and alter those costs. Additionally, the agricultural properties can receive up to the 1/3 grant from the Ministry of Agriculture. And there are other opportunities as well. The township has looked in and developed a policy for debenturing those types of projects, large capital drain projects, to private landowners as well, if the costs are higher than some of the property owners are able to pay that first year.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion? Opposed? None? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you to our drainage superintendent. Good job. And our fire staff report. We look to our chief to give us our project management services for the construction of Wainfleet Fire and Emergency Services. Go ahead, chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you may recall, on October 26, council directed staff to utilize a request for proposal process for the selection of a project manager for the construction of the Central Fire Station project. While staff were developing the RFP to ensure that the scope of the work requested by council was accurately captured, nor conflicted with previously established contracts, the CAO concurrently began investigations with a local area municipality into the viability of a shared service for a project manager. The RFP was issued on November 22nd and closed on December 1st. During that time, several questions were received by potential proponents, resulting in 2 clarifying addendas being issued. Once the RFP submission deadline occurred, only one proponent, Urban Environmental Management, also known as UEM Consulting, submitted a proposal. An evaluation of the proposal was conducted by the internal project team to ensure completeness, review past experience and reference and capabilities. Additionally, the CAO continued discussions regarding the shared service option. And as you see on the report, we've prepared 3 options for council's consideration. However, I suspect the CAO may wish to provide additional comments.
Thank you, and I'll look to the CAO for those comments.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, and thank you, Fire Chief, for the summary that you provided. Again, I think the situation that council has before it at this time is in accordance with your previous direction. We did go to market. We did get a proposal from a private firm that certainly specializes, has expertise in the field of construction and project management. And their bid is detailed in the report that's before you. As previously mentioned to council, the alternative to that is a sort of shared services model, something that municipalities across Niagara and Ontario have been exploring more and more frequently, particularly in light of the current economic situation. In terms of this project, the township has the possibility of partnering with the town of Lincoln for an amount comparable to that provided or bid by UEM. The sort of difference that would exist in this situation is that we would actually have the services, the full-time services of a project manager from the town of Lincoln that would be committed to the Township of Wainfleet during the construction period. In addition to being able to oversee the project that was identified here, the Central Station project, we would also have the ability to devote that resource to other municipal projects should the need arise and should the capacity be there. The final option, again, as sort of identified in the report, is none of the above and just sort of continue the project as sort of originally envisioned prior to council's consideration of the RFP. So again, at this stage, staff are prepared to respond to any questions and try to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Will, and I'm going to look for questions, comments from staff, please. Council, sorry. Staff, no. Anybody? Councillor McLeod.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, Will, I see we have a price here, and my question is there any breakout so if we sign a contract with this gentleman, we owe him this. My question is, if we put this project out to tender and he comes back way over budget, is there a provision in there that, because part of his contract is going to be to look at it before we put it to tender and see if he finds any problems, so he started his work. Is there a provision in there to say if this contract comes back or the tenders come back and they're way over budget and we cancel it, that we don't pay him the whole amount? Do you look that far?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask the fire chief if he can provide comment on the RFP and the contents of the sort of draft agreement that is being anticipated.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the RFP that was sent out did include a clause that the purchaser did have the authority or the right to cancel the project, and that there was no guaranteed work upon completion of the RFP process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan, follow up?
Yeah, so that's not what I'm really asking, because we could cancel it, but he's going to start work, right? So, and I'm not trying to beat anybody. I'm just trying to make sure the town is protected, right? So that if this drags on, we don't go into lame duck if it comes back and it's too expensive and we say, no, we're not doing it. I don't want to add insult to injury on this thing, right? So that's my question. Is there, if he does this much, it's X number of dollars. If we go past that and start, once we say we go, it's the price it is. But up until that point, is there a $10,000 bill or a $15,000 bill, or can we ask that before we go?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Morgan. I was going to say I don't have a copy of it before me.
Yep.
But the question is, in the event that the construction tender comes back and the construction tender is not awarded, are we on the hook for all intents and purposes for the entire consultant amount for project management services?
So the way I have it broken out here, there is four components. And it does state here, the township reserves the right to undertake a portion or all of the project components as the township sees fit. So, I mean, it's right there in their bid submission. They're aware that, they've broken it out by phase. There's 4 phases. And, if we get to phase 3 and council determines not to move forward, then that's where the project stops.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Morgan, could you identify those 4 phases? I don't think we have that in front of us today.
Sure. So the first one is construction design and document review phase. The next one is contractor procurement and tender phase. The fourth is construction management and inspections. And then the fourth is post-construction and warranty work.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the chief. Can you tell us what the percentage cost of each phase you've got allocated? So is phase 1 10%, 30%? How's that broken out? I mean, I think it's great that we have it in phases, but it still doesn't answer Councillor McCollum's question.
So for this one, given the fact that we already have contract administration included with our prime consultant, Ramondo and Associates, they have given us an in-kind value of no charge for the first 2 phases.
Yeah, I'm confused too. Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, so Morgan, that doesn't answer the question. We're talking about this project manager. You have it broken into 4 phases, or his contract into 4 phases. So what I need to know is phase 1 $5,000, is phase 2 $5,000, is the next one $40,000, and the next one the remainder? That's what we're trying to find out.
Sure. Phase 1, $0. Phase 2, $0. Phase 3, construction management, 43,395, and phase 4, post-construction, 21,590. So should we go to tender and council says no, there should be no cost to us.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Morgan. How long are we talking with the, do you have an estimated time that we would be spending $73,000 on a project manager? Like how long that would be? It's not a year.
Right. So their construction estimate or proposal is 13 months with an additional 3 months for post-warranty inspections and commissioning and such.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Van Vliet?
No, my only follow-up would be option 3 because I don't see spending $73,000 on a project manager when the team we've already had in place are professionals and they've been doing an excellent job. And I've had numerous conversations with the team and they're knowledgeable, and we have Ramondo as a backup. I just think we're trying to save money on this project, but we're going to spend over $73,000 on a project manager. So I like the team that we have in place. I think they're doing well. They're professionals. I think it's a waste of taxpayer money.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan had his hand up. Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Van Vliet. Is that a comment?
That's a comment.
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion that we proceed with option 1, and that at the January 4th meeting we get an updated charter of the project. Charter is updated and presented back to council, as well as well, we sort of have the terms, but I'd like to see the terms of the contract presented at that time as well.
Okay, thank you. So the motion being that council choose option 1, which is Urban and Environmental Management, UEM Consulting, as the project managers for this fire hall project. To have a seconder for that, please. Councillor McClellan seconds it. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Mayor, through you to council. Councillor Gilmore mentioned January 4th. While that is 3 weeks away, technically, it is over the holiday season, and there are a number of other already ongoing elements associated both this project and other projects. Could I respectfully request that perhaps we have a little more additional time to bring that charter back rather than at the 4th? If you could give us either the end of January or February, we'd very much appreciate the additional time.
That's a friendly amendment, I guess. Okay. How about we say the soonest available meeting? I just want to see the project charter updated, but I don't want to hold up keeping the ball rolling. That's my intent.
Okay, so that motion is on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion on that for UEM?
Mr. Mayor, I see the chief with his hand up.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Chief.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So with that said, there has been several versions of the charter submitted to council over the past year and a half. I would request that you take a review of that and then provide staff with comments, so that way when we come forward with the charter, it reflects your comments ahead of time.
Okay, noted, and thank you. Okay, so Councillor Cridlin, go ahead.
Thank you, and we've still got the motion on the floor. So this is just to clarify then that the contract can't be awarded yet, or is going to be awarded, and therefore they're going to start their review process right away, or is that going to be after staff comes back? Could I just clarify that piece, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If the motion passes, you are awarding the contract / project, the construction/project management services to UEM. We will get them on board as quickly as possible. They will, as the first phase indicates, review the construction tender over the course of the next 3 weeks. We hope to get the construction tender going. We have that direction from you already. And what we'll wait for council, coming back to council, is the new project charter sort of clearly delineating who's doing what for the remainder of the project.
Thank you for the clarification. That's excellent.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we shall take the vote. And all in favor of UAM option 1? And opposed? 4 and 1 opposed. That is carried. Thank you.
Mayor, can I propose we have a 5-minute recess?
Yes, it's 9:05. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Meeting back to order. And we're moving on to planning staff report. Item D, Deputy Mayor Cridlin will now assume the role as the chair, as I declared an interest on the next report being PSR 12-2021. So I will step out and Councillor Cridlin is going to take over.
Thank you. So the next is planning staff report PSR 012/2021, and it's the update on the disposal of the abandoned rail corridor. I think we have Ms. Ivins, our planner, to give us a brief overview, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cridland. So Council had previously asked staff to prepare a report regarding the feasibility of creating building lots with the remaining abandoned rail corridor lands. So this report provides an analysis of various policies regarding lot creation within the greater agricultural system, possible contamination due to its past use, compliance with the township's zoning bylaw, as well as some site-specific constraints on a lot-by-lot basis. So the report concludes that there are no feasible building lots, and so staff are recommending that we continue to process applications for the remaining lands under the current policy and procedure. And I'm recommending that the two applications that were previously deferred by council back in August be approved through the adoption of bylaw 43/2021, which is on the agenda for consideration this evening.
Thank you. And I think we'll put the motion on the floor then next. And the motion is the planning staff report PSR-012/2021 respecting the update on disposal of the abandoned rail corridor be received, and that staff continue to process applications for the disposal of the abandoned railway corridor under the current policy and procedure, and that the draft bylaw attached to this report as Appendix D be adopted. Could I have a mover for that? Councillor Van Vliet, and seconded by Councillor Gilmore. And then is there any discussion on the report, please? Okay. Seeing none, we'll call the question for a vote on the motion then, please. All in favor? All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And I think we'll call the mayor back into the office. Thank you.
No, I'm going to skip that. Okay, thank you. I think we're on now 13/2021, condominium agreement and final approval of the draft plan of condominium P012014W Lakewood Beach Properties Limited. And we'll look to our planner to brief us on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all of council. So staff are pleased to bring forward the condominium agreement for finalization and execution in order to register the plan of condominium for the Lakewood Beach development. So I will note that the purpose of this staff report is not to consider the merits of the development, but rather to confirm that all 61 conditions of the previously approved draft plan have been met and to receive authorization to enter into the condominium agreement with the developer. So clearances for the 61 conditions have been received from the appropriate agencies, including the Ministry of Environment, Region of Niagara, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, as well as various township departments. So township planning and legal staff have worked extensively with the developer's team and legal representatives to finalize the agreement that's before council this evening.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is going to be that the bylaw attached as Appendix B be adopted by council to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the condominium agreement with Lakewood Beach Properties Limited, and that the bylaw attached as Appendix C be adopted by council to amend bylaw 42/2010 to add Lakewood Beach Drive and Sandy Lane to the consolidated list of street names, and that staff be authorized to grant final approval upon execution of the condominium agreement, and that staff be directed to bring forward a bylaw to remove the holding provision on the subject property upon execution and registration of the condominium agreement. A mover and a seconder to put that on the floor, please. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Gilmore. And discussion, please. Questions or discussion? Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sarah, my concern is with condition number, 26, with the water, the Long Beach water that is now Clearford, correct? Okay, I have concerns, as do other people, about them they're under a boil of water right now, that system. So I have concerns that they'll be able to deliver water. Do you have any more information on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Van Vliet. So I do acknowledge that Clearford, the water treatment plant, does require some upgrades to address that boil water advisory. And that's with their current system that currently services a number of residents within the Long Beach area. So the Ministry of Environment is overseeing that particular issue, and Clearford has demonstrated an intent to them to complete the necessary upgrades. Now, there have been a few challenges that they are working through in order to be able to complete those upgrades. Some of them dealing with some property issues. And the developers team has actually advised us that Clearford is waiting on the approval of the Lakewood development in order to trigger a funding opportunity for Clearford to upgrade the system. So we do recognize the issue with the current system, but there is work being done to progress that issue. And I will also note that the developer has entered into a municipal responsibility agreement with the region of Niagara, and the township is a party to that as well, to ensure that there is ongoing provision of private servicing, so both water and septic. So council has executed that agreement, and that was done through a bylaw in 2019. So we have that agreement in place to ensure that those services are provided on a continual basis. And the design of the system itself does have a contingency for water to be trucked in, filling cisterns located within the development. I know that that's not an ideal situation, but there is that contingency and backup plan should issues continue with Clearford.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. The important point there being that there is a backup system in place, and the township is in good position in that sense regarding any liabilities, so the agreement's already been looked after. Any other questions? Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Sarah. Sarah, I noticed there's nothing in here about short-term rentals. This is the one time we get to kick this can. I firmly believe there should be an agreement, and I've checked and I know of 3 others in 3 different municipalities that have no short-term rentals less than 3 months in condominiums. You know, we need to put this in. This is going to be a problem. The other thing, and it's a problem everywhere, so if we get a chance to put it in, it is in condo agreements right now. I would also suggest, as the last council meeting, we passed the bylaw on dirtying our roads, that we do the same thing with this. We put in a fine, that it gets escalated every time it goes up, and after the 3rd time, the condo corporation gets a fine. And then they'll enforce that there's no short-term rentals. Why are we going to pay a bylaws officer to go out and do this when we can write it right in and it's somebody else's responsibility, and we take care of the people that are our future residents, that they're not putting up with headaches?
Okay, thank you. I look to Sarah for comments on that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan, with respect to short-term rentals. So as council is aware, I think it was a couple of meetings ago, or maybe last meeting, we presented a draft bylaw in terms of regulating short-term rentals. I think that that is the most appropriate way to regulate them, rather than in specific development agreements. With, in this case, with the Lakewood development. Now, the condo board could choose through their bylaws and policies to not permit residents to have short-term rentals, but that would be at the discretion of the condominium board. Like I said, we're looking at a township-wide short-term rental bylaw that would dictate what types of units are able to have short-term rentals and the rules and licensing required with that. So I don't believe that it's prudent to include it within the development agreement for Lakewood, because we are exploring other avenues. And ultimately, the condo board could have the final say on whether or not they allow that within the development.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up, Councillor McClellan.
So I do not agree with that. This is our one chance to get it done. Other developers are putting it right in their condo before they sell a unit. You know the rules. We should absolutely be putting this in and protecting our township and our residents. This is, we have the opportunity right now. The man's going to sign the agreement, so let's get it done.
Okay, thank you. I see Lindsay there. I'd like to speak to that, please.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. While we were drafting the short-term rentals draft bylaw, we did get a legal opinion, and the township solicitor had identified that we cannot restrict land uses through the condominium agreement. Because in the past, and we did confirm with our township solicitor that we cannot do that through the agreement. So I would suggest that that could be done, as Ms. Sarah mentioned, through the condominium corporation, or we can look at that through comments through the short-term rental bylaw once council brings that back for discussion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So one thing about dealing with through the short-term rental agreement, once that is in place, is that it'll be consistent right across the entire township, and it'll all be applied equally. So that should work. I would think that's going to be a good bylaw. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Right now, everything out there is zoned residential. I go in and buy a place and decide I want to rent it out. I turn it from residential to commercial overnight. I don't have to come to the town and ask the planners, can I change this? This is our chance to stop this in this area. It's a security issue. This is basically a private area that they're sitting back on their own little estates, and this should be done. It's done other places. I don't know why we're saying no.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I think from my perspective, like, this is kind of the first time that I've had all these conditions in a succinct chart where I've been able to, to go through it, and I've made a few notes, and I was going to reference 26 as well. I think in the interest of due diligence and giving ourselves some measure of comfort that we're comfortable with all these conditions, that we defer the approval of this to the January 4th meeting, and that gives us all time to go through all of these, ask any questions of staff, and then we just defer the approval till January the 4th. So I would move that we defer this till the 4th.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that, Councillor Van Vliet. And any other discussion on, no discussion on deferral? All in favor of that? And that is carried. So that item is deferred until January the 4th. Okay. Public Works Staff Report, Amendment to the Traffic Bylaw 10/2018. And we look to Mr. Nan to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to members of council. Before you is Public Works Staff Report 024/2021 respecting the amendment to the Parking and Traffic Bylaw. Staff received a request to investigate the signage at the intersection of Fowler and Lakefield Crescent for inconsistencies. I took the opportunity early one morning on my way in to review the intersection myself. The intersection currently has a stop sign at the northeast corner of Fowler and Lakefield Crescent and a yield sign on the southeast corner. The original Fowler Road was constructed and vehicle traffic originally were only able to travel on Fowler Road. The subdivision of Lakefield Crescent produced a T intersection during construction, and a stop sign was placed at the exit of the subdivision. The current signage can be confusing for motorists that are not familiar with the area, and as such, a conflict may occur between vehicles. Staff are proposing the amendment to the relocation of the stop sign to where the current yield sign location is at the southeast corner, allowing through traffic to continue easterly and westerly through the intersection uninterrupted. Staff have provided our recommendations contained in the report for council consideration.
Okay, thank you. So, motion being 24-2021, respecting an amendment to the parking and traffic bylaw be received, and that the draft bylaw to amend the parking and traffic bylaw attached as Appendix A be presented to council for consideration. Mover seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, Councillor McClellan and Councillor Gilmore, and discussion. Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through Mayor, to staff probably. Have there been any complaints then about this one that we are aware of? It looks like we're going to be changing the behavior a fair bit, just from the little I know about the area. So if you can just comment on, you know, what we're expecting for this change, perhaps.
Through your worship to Councillor Curlin, the request that was received was to have the yield sign removed and just have a single stop sign. The unfortunate part with that is there is conflicting traffic when you allow them to cross through a T intersection. So the yield sign, I believe the intention originally was that they would have to yield to people going through the intersection and the other people were stopping, which is conflicting with any engineering practices that we have today. So the intention, once it's brought to our attention, similar to a lot of things that happen in the township, once we're made aware of a situation, we investigate it, and we try to come up with the least or the best responsible action to relieve the township of any liability. So that's that's the intention of changing the signage at the intersection at this time.
Okay, follow up, Councillor Cridland.
Thank you. And again, we're increasing safety long-term based on our, delegation this afternoon. That's the direction we want to be going. Thanks for the staff work.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of this? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we go to review of correspondence. Item C, 342-2021. Ted Harvey, SPR invitation to petition for more truck parking on Ontario highways to aid commerce, public safety, and community well-being. And I'd like, I think, Councillor Gilmore to speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure whether any of my colleagues got the email or if he just picked me.
I got it, and I think I sent it out to everybody.
Anyway, I sort of started to go through and approve the petition, and I guess I got bogged down somewhere, and then I decided that maybe it would have a little more impact if it came from municipality. I realized that, we don't have a lot of truck traffic and nobody's parking in Wainfleet, but it is a problem in the industry. I can assure you of that. I can also assure you that the industry is experiencing a lot more greater problems than just this. And my fear, based on my 40 years of being in this industry, is that we're headed in a very bad spot if we don't do something to turn around the trucking industry and get people involved in it. Because if you think that we're going to get by as a society without trucks anytime in our lifetime, you're sadly mistaken. So I just think that it's a good idea to support this and send a message to the province, because it is a big problem, especially in the north. It's even worse than it is down south of North Bay. But So I just thought it would be a good idea to support this.
Oh, okay. Would you like to make a motion then?
So move.
Okay, seconded. Councillor Van Vliet seconds it. Any other discussion? Councillor Cridland?
Thank you. I think you probably want this to go to all of the municipalities, I think, in Ontario. That tends to be an effective way to make sure that that's amplified. So maybe that's a friendly amendment. And then I might just include our regional chair, so this also stays in the focus of the region. So I'd make those as friendly amendments.
Okay, that's friendly and that's accepted. Anything else on that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. Now we go to correspondence C 348-2021, Lakeshore B2C Internet Service Advocacy Group request for council to advocate to SWIFT respecting gaps in internet service. And I look to Councillor Cridland to speak to that, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And again, I think this has been included in our correspondence package, the letter from the residents group. I have prepared, it's a little bit of a lengthy motion, but it's just to make sure that we have what we need in the letter that's intended to go to SWIFT. So I'll read that if I can indulge the council for a few minutes. So again, this is for all of Wainfleet, but it happens to be coming from one group. That the Township of Wainfleet call on Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, known as SWIFT, on behalf of all of its residents, including those located in the Lakeshore Road area of the township between Bessie Road and Cement Road, who recently approached council to express concern regarding the poor internet service levels for the purpose of addressing the incorrect Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada National Broadband Internet Service Availability Mapping, which doesn't match right now, that shows specific areas of Wainfleet having 25.5 Mbps internet service available, when in reality, the internet service providers in the area are only able to deliver average service speeds in the range of less than 2.5 and 0.2. And again, that was done by a detailed survey by this group, and encouraging ISPs to bid for, supply, and deliver improved internet services to Wainfleet residents in keeping with Canada's connectivity strategy, high-speed access for all, particularly in those areas in the township where even basic 5 and 1 universal broadband coverage levels are not being adequately provided. So the direction is that copies of this resolution be shared with SWIFT, including the CEO and the board chair, and the SWIFT representative for Southwestern Ontario, which is Councillor Foster. And also a copy to the Telecommunications CRTC and the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure. Thank you for that.
Okay, that is the motion moved by Councillor Cridland. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor McClellan. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that motion? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Now move into bylaws, and I must excuse myself on the one with 43-2021. 40-2021 being a bylaw to provide drainage works in the Township of Wainfleet in the region of Niagara. Mover seconder for that one. I'm going to do them separately. Councillor McClellan, Councillor Van Vliet. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now Deputy Mayor Cridland will now take the chair again for number 43. I'll just step back here.
Okay, the next is reading of bylaw, the passing of the bylaw number 43-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the transfer by Corporation of Township of Wainfleet in favor of the applicants for the abandoned corridor. That this bylaw being a bylaw to authorize, I think I've read that incorrectly. My apologies. It's the bylaw is 43-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the transfer by the corporation, be read and passed the 7th day of December 2021. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Van Vliet, Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? Okay, I'll just call the question. All in favor? And that's passed.
Okay, thank you. The rest of the bylaws we'll read in bulk. That bylaw 44, 45, 46, and 47, as listed on the agenda, be read and passed the 7th day of December 2021. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor, point of order, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd suggest we lift 44 and deal with the other ones and circle back to it, please.
Okay, you want 44 separately? Okay. I don't have 44, I have to dig it out. Okay, so then we'll move in bulk 45, 46.
Sorry, 46 is a moot point because
that's
we deferred it, so
right.
So it comes out. Why don't you just do them individually? Let's just do that.
Okay. So dig them out. Hang on.
The clerk can read the bylaws for you, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead. I was just getting them in order here. Go ahead, though.
So the first one that would be bylaw number 44, 2021, being a bylaw to close and convey part of a public road, being the road allowance between the Township of Wainfleet and Township of Mountain, designated as Part 1 and Part 2, 59R 17110, Township of Wainfleet, be read and passed the 7th day of December 2021.
Okay, thank you. Mover, seconder for that. That's the bylaw. Go ahead. Councillor Quillen, Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? None. All in favor? There's discussion?
No, I just wanted to get it on the floor. We have to talk about it. So I just wonder if there's any appetite to defer this to for one meeting cycle. I'm not suggesting that I have an appetite for it. I think that there's some risk that if we do that, and there would be a storm in the next 3 weeks, and something else got wiped out, that it might not be the smartest thing to do. But I know we've heard from both sides, and clearly people aren't agreeing. But if my colleagues want to think about it, then I'm open to waiting till the 4th. But that can be voted down.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on that? Councillor Van Vliet?
No, I'm in agreement with Councillor Gilmore that we defer it until the January 4th meeting.
Okay, so moved, seconded. All in favor of deferring it? Sure. Okay, that's done. 44. Madam Clerk, the next one is 46. That one we don't have to do. I don't have them in front of me. That's why I'm stumbling along here.
So the next one is bylaw 45, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 42, 2010, being a bylaw to adopt municipal and private road names in the Township of Wainfleet, be read and passed the 7th day of December 2021.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. May I suggest that be deferred to the 4th as well, because that's part of the Lakewood conditions?
So number 45 and 46 will be deferred. Let me just get up.
Okay, all, and I guess take a vote on that for deferral. Moved, seconded by Councillor Van Vliet and Councillor McClellan. All in favor of that? That's carried unanimously. Is there any more?
47, number 47, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 10, 2018, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking on township roads, be read and passed the 7th day of December 2021.
Thank you. Councillor Gilmore moves it. Councillor McClellan seconds it. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And that takes us to 48, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council at its meeting held on the 7th day of December 2021. The bylaw number 48 being a bylaw. That's done. Moved, seconded. Councillor McClellan, Councillor go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I'm not sure if we called for any notices of motion. I don't know if there is any, but I don't know if that's
Not even here.
just to make sure we cover it. Thank you.
Okay, any notices of motion? Okay. Good. Okay. All in favor of this motion? That's carried. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.